it's a pretty bad time to be a Spider-Man fan right now. Well, as far as the comics are concerned. The movies are pretty cool. The current video game franchise has been a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to that animated show that apparently isn't cancelled. It's a glorified What If spinoff that's basically what if MCU Spider-Man actually focused more on Spider-Man characters and felt like Spider-Man?
You serious?
That said, I feel that if you're like me, and the movies, and the video games, and the TV shows, off-brand popsicles, porn parodies, action figures, and all that stuff is cool, but ultimately supplementary because, as far as you're concerned, Spider-Man begins and ends with comics, then yeah, it's a pretty bad time to be a Spider-Man fan right now. That said, next month, Jonathan Hickman and Marco Checchetto are going to reinvent Spider-Man within the brand new Ultimate Universe reboot, where Peter Parker is an adult with a family and he's married to MJ. And on paper, it's everything that everyone's been asking for since One More Day. And I gotta be honest, this book isn't even out yet, and I feel like it's suffering from a severe case of Golden Goose Syndrome. The hype for this book is rivaled only by that of the announcement of Belle Delphine's OnlyFans, and much like it, I feel like the reaction to the final product will be the same.
I mean, it's alright, like...
And I'm not saying that because I think poorly of Jonathan Hickman, or Marco Checchetto, or even Belle Delphine for that matter. If anything, I feel like Hickman is one of the best writers working at Marvel right now, and Checchetto is one of the best artists, not just at Marvel, but one of the best artists working in comics right now. The power of such a creative team at what feels like the peak of their respective careers is unmatched. Be that as it may, this comic is not what I think a lot of people think it's going to be. The major appeal of Spider-Man, and I've said this 1,000 times, is that it's the ultimate coming-of-age story. Peter Parker is a teenager who we watch grow into an adult and learn life lessons through his adventures as Spider-Man. That's why Peter B. Parker from the Spider-Verse movies resonates with so many people, because it actually gives us a glimpse into the future that, at this point, Marvel will seemingly never get to. The insecure, angry boy who grew into a loving family man. That, I think, is the appeal of getting an older Spider-Man. Or an older Peter Parker, much rather. And from what I can surmise, that is not going to be the case with the new Ultimate Spider-Man series. And at the end of the first issue of Ultimate Invasion, which, okay, I guess I'll give context for anyone who needs it. Fuck, where do I even start with this? Okay, so in the original Ultimate Universe, Sue Storm breaks up with Reed Richards and then hooks up with Ben Grimm, so then Reed becomes a supervillain called the Maker, and he's essentially incel Zoomer Doctor Doom, and after the multiverse collapses in the 2015 Secret Wars event, the Maker is stranded in the Prime 616 Marvel Universe. And in pretty much all of his appearances ever since, he's been trying to figure out ways to get back to his home dimension, which he doesn't quite do in Ultimate Invasion. In the first issue, he travels across the multiverse to a world where nothing's really happened yet, and he starts controlling the flow of events. He kills off 3/4 of the Fantastic Four, and he turns that world's Reed Richards into a slave. He makes Loki the king of Asgard and destroys the Bifrost so that Thor can never get to Earth. And one of the things that he does is kill the irradiated spider that was going to bite Peter Parker and turn him into Spider-Man, so that Peter Parker never becomes a superhero. So the Maker is essentially wiping out any potential threats to his plans for the new Ultimate Universe. However, because there's an Ultimate Spider-Man book coming this January featuring an older Peter Parker, I think it's safe to assume that Peter does wind up getting superpowers at some point, and he does wind up becoming Spider-Man. How and why? We don't know yet. We'll just have to wait and see, but one thing that I can say for certain, this does not look like a traditional Spider-Man book. Not by the conventions of the classic 616 series, not by the conventions of the Ultimate Spider-Man series, not even by the conventions of Life Story, which, for all intents and purposes, is basically classic Spider-Man if the character was allowed to grow past his 20s. But because Peter starts his career as an adult with a wife and children, that just fundamentally makes him a different kind of Spider-Man. If anything, it makes him closer to DC's Animal Man than anyone else, which honestly sounds really cool to me. First of all, if you don't know who Animal Man is, check out the Grant Morrison Animal Man run and the Jeff Lemire New 52 Animal Man run. Both are great, and Animal Man is just a really underrated character. But second, and more to the point, I am fascinated to see what this book winds up looking like. Adult Peter Parker aside, there's an Iron Man-esque Green Goblin flying around, and he's literally wearing Stark Tech armor. And with Norman Osborn supposedly being dead in this universe, I'm interested to know what the Goblin twist is going to be here. And again, because this is Jonathan Hickman, I know this is not going to be a straightforward crime thriller like Spider-Man stories usually are. I know there's going to be something else. I know there's going to be something weird. I know it's going to wind up being really high concept, which on paper, I'm not usually all that into. But whenever Hickman has had the chance to write Spider-Man in the past, I've always really enjoyed his inclusion, even when it feels random and unnecessary, like in his Fantastic Four run. Like, okay, after the death of Johnny Storm, he could have been replaced by anybody. But Hickman chose Spider-Man because he likes Spider-Man. He also put Spider-Man on the Avengers. Again, no particular reason aside from loving Spider-Man, because Spider-Man just, quite frankly, doesn't belong on the Avengers. So, now that Hickman is behind the wheel of an actual Spider-Man book, there's a lot of promise there. I also think starting with such an unfamiliar status quo for the character sets the stage for something really interesting. Especially with the new Ultimate Universe Doctor Doom assembling his own ragtag Avengers team against the Maker. And again, I'm just really excited about this book. Do I think it's going to end world hunger? No. Will it change the course of human history? Not likely. Is it going to save the Spider-Man brand? Again, as far as the comics are concerned. Probably not. But do I think it'll be one of the better Spider-Man series in recent years?
You're goddamn right.
And again, it's going to be very different. And this is very clearly Marvel throwing yet another passive-aggressive bone at fans who've been asking for a married Spider-Man since One More Day. And it's not really what anyone's been asking for. It's like asking your mom for a dog, and then she makes your dad strip naked and then clip a collar around his neck, and then he starts barking and shitting all over the house. It's sort of like that. Marvel knows what we've been asking for, and they will do literally anything but that. And at the end of the day, I feel like this book is going to come out and not live up to everyone's expectations. Not because it won't be good, but because comic book Spider-Man has, quite frankly, been so shit for so long. Everyone's looking for the alternative to be the second coming. And on top of that, Jonathan Hickman has a very decompressed writing style, which usually feels very scattered for the first couple of issues, but by the time you get to like issue 900,000,000 and the inevitable tie-in event, as well as the other books that Hickman is writing at the time, when you go back to those first few issues, your mind is blown because you can see how all the tiny little dots finally connect. But because Spider-Man is a significantly more high-profile book than, say, the Fantastic Four or the Avengers, I do wonder if there's going to be a sort of resentment that Hickman didn't fix Spider-Man with the first issue. Because Hickman himself is starting to fight against his own reputation a little bit as of late. I remember after House of X and Powers of 10, there was a similar hype surrounding the X-Men. A lot of people were anticipating the promise behind Hickman as like a brand. You know, there was this prestige to his name that carried a lot of weight. So a lot of people were looking to Hickman to fix the X-Men. I mean, Lord knows I was definitely among that group. But once Hickman started actually writing the core X-Men title, a lot of people, at least at my local comic shop, were annoyed with it because they felt like nothing was happening. Hickman was brought on board to fix the X-Men, and all he was doing was telling these small-scale interpersonal stories about Cyclops and Cable, and Magneto having dinner with world leaders, and there was this whole thing with botanical grannies or something. I don't quite remember. And then there was X of Swords, which was divisive at best. So once Hickman was taken off of the X-Men altogether, that's really when the Krakoa era ship started to sink, because he wasn't allowed to do for the X-Men what he did for the Fantastic Four and the Avengers. Marvel just didn't let him cook, and now the X-Men are barreling towards the same aimlessness that Hickman was brought on board to save them from in the first place. So that could also wind up happening to Spider-Man. You know, that is a possibility. That is definitely in the back of my mind. So, look, I don't know. I'm excited, but I'm also nervous. You know, I just don't want this to be another Hickman book that falls victim to unrealistic expectations. And I don't know, I'm just seeing the same level of Golden Goose Syndrome with the Ultimate Spider-Man book that we were seeing with the X-Men a couple of years ago. And I'm just worried. You know, that's all. But what about you? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts regarding my thoughts? Let me know down below in the comment section. As always, I am the Mystical Green Beanie. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button, share, support the channel, and if you want to see more content like this, all you gotta do is subscribe. I am the Mystical Green Beanie. Thanks for watching, and as always, until next time, adios, nachos, adios.